Uploading.
I've always known the risks that come with a Starfleet uniform. If I'm to die in one, I'd like my death to count for something.
So let's go ahead and address something that I've observed in the comments about my recent videos. People have stated that the most recent essays I've done are becoming more cynical, or that I've gotten darker. This is then equated to how I'm feeling, or the place I may be in. While it's not impossible, certainly years back when I was having a rough time with the divorce, it impacted my opinions, I don't really feel that's happening right here. What is occurring is that I'm going into some darker aspects of Trek as a series, and so the work is reflecting that. I've said it before, but let me repeat it here. Though the work is what it is, don't blame me. With that out of the way, let's get into something that's a bit more uplifting, shall we? Let's talk about how Tasha Yar destroyed the timeline.
Galactic outpost in those days.
Was this before the Klingons joined the Federation?
That's right.
One of the most glaring continuity issues in Star Trek The Next Generation is the fact that it's stated that the Klingons were finally a member state of the Federation. This can not only be seen in several different episodes in The Next Generation Season 1 and Season 2, but it can be inferred based on the designs of the Klingon vessels in that series. It seems like from the early to mid-24th century, these ships began taking on aspects of Starfleet design. But for some reason, once we get into late Season 2 and beyond, the Klingons apparently stopped being a member and simply became strong allies of the United Federation of Planets. This is never discussed, never given an explanation. It's as if it never happened. As stated, for many, it was simply considered a continuity issue that couldn't be explained. But I think it can be.
You don't belong on that ship, Lieutenant.
No, Captain Garrett belongs on that ship. But she's dead. And I think there's a certain logic in this request.
There's no logic in this at all.
What if, in yesterday's Enterprise, Tasha going back in time to help the Enterprise C changed everything? What if the Federation and Klingons' attempts to become one was undermined by none other than Sela? In the original timeline, the Klingon Empire at some point had joined the Federation. We know this due to a discussion between Picard and Wesley, as well as seeing insignias on the bridge of Klingon vessels. Additionally, Klingon ships and Federation vessels could freely go through each other's space, and there appeared to be little, if any, regulation to it. This included Klingon vessels decloaking in Federation space. While this makes perfect sense for an organization that isn't separated, that is indeed one, it's considered beyond relaxed for even the closest of allies. When you think about it, it actually makes a lot of sense. It's really easy to assume that the second Khitomer Accords, and yes, there were two, was born of honor and sacrifice. Hell, when the crew of the USS Enterprise C decided to give their lives, it may have inspired the second Khitomer Accords to be basically a precursor to full membership. If not an actual merger. We're not really sure how they're members, if they merged into one or simply became a member state.
Lieutenant, what are their sensor readings?
Unfortunately, this would all change when we see the events of yesterday's Enterprise. The Enterprise C would come through an anomaly, and the course of events are irrevocably damaged. Without the Enterprise C's sacrifice, the Federation is on the brink of complete collapse. I won't be going far into that timeline, but we do know that Tasha Yar is still alive, and she wasn't killed due to people being petty. Learning of her fate, should things return to the way they were, Tasha opts to join the Enterprise C and help them defend the colony. This, however, would have an amazing butterfly effect.
She was among those few who survived. They were all to have been executed after the interrogation, but a Romulan general saw her and became enamored with her. So a deal was struck. Their lives would be spared if she became his consort.
Perhaps the crew of the Enterprise C, which may originally have all been meant to be killed in action, would have survivors. And again, possibly thanks to Tasha, and they were all taken prisoner by the Romulans. This would result in either the complete brainwashing of Tasha Yar, turning her into Sela, or she would have a child by the same name. This is kind of where things get interesting. Perhaps, with the machinations of Sela, the Romulan Star Empire is able to predict the alliance between the Federation and Klingon Empire, and began to sabotage things slowly. In fact, it kind of fits kind of well given the future tensions that we see between the Klingons and their ally.
Are you aware of any other Klingon-Romulan connection that Starfleet might have encountered recently?
Both sides becoming very weary of each other. And all of these attempts to bring them apart is ultimately due to Romulan ploys. It's not as far-fetched as you think when you consider that Sela was so smart, so powerful, that she was able to almost invade Vulcan. Vulcan, a member state right next to Earth. While that would fail, you have to admit it takes some gumption and ability to even get that far. So with that, the happier version of events were now rewritten so that a member state just becomes a strong ally. This would allow the Romulans to keep all of the pieces separated on the board so that they can at least have some control and some power within the Alpha Quadrant. It honestly really all fits when you look at it. But these are all my opinions. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to rate, subscribe, and guys, all of our lives are a story. Make yours a good one.